Welcome, Red Cube listeners. We are delighted to welcome our next guest to the show, Aileen Bailey, the HR Director from the IRFU. Aileen, you're very welcome.
Thanks for being in, Cathal, and thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot, Aileen. We really appreciate your time. So we're looking forward to the conversation today. The IRFU have spent a lot of time introducing really progressive work practices for their people. So we're looking forward to hearing more about that. But before we get into that, Aileen, you might share with the listeners a sense of your own career path to date and how you've ended up in the current role.
No problem at all. Well, I would have gone to college in DCU doing a business degree with a specialism in HR. In the final year, I would have graduated from there in 2004, which is a while ago now. I worked in HR actually since I graduated. I've been lucky enough. I worked in AIB. I worked in recruitment for a stint. I worked in airline and comms, also in HR roles. And I would have worked in two sporting bodies, one obviously the IRFU where I am now, and before that I worked for the FAI for 5.5 years. So it's been a busy and varied career to date.
Why HR, Aileen? Is there something particular that draws you to HR?
Yeah, a few people have asked me that in the past, and we did some kind of module in business studies, and I just had it in my head from then that I wanted to work in HR. I'd done a couple of summers in my teens. My dad used to work in an insurance company, a health insurance company, and I'd done a couple of stints. And then for my final one, they invited me to work in the HR department. So I was delighted, a HR geek, delighted to go in and see what it was all about. And I think it was the chatty people. I would have always been a kind of a chatterbox, probably more so in my teens and 20s than I am now. But definitely wanted to be in a role that would make a difference, a caring type role. And that's what I saw at the time. HR was very much, just looking after staff, making things better for them. And that's how I saw it. And I would get to interact with people and not necessarily be, stuck to a desk. That kind of really excited me at the time. I really wanted, I think HR, the area of HR that I was really interested in was probably recruitment. You got to meet new people all the time, and but quickly through my roles have always been HR generalist type roles. So a lot of variety with that, and that's what I enjoy. I know a lot of people go and specialize, which is great, and they become kind of an expert in a particular area. But I've always enjoyed, and as far as I know now, I will continue to do that. Definitely work in those generalist type areas. So yeah, I've just always wanted to work in HR. So I hope that's answered it.
Aileen, you're talking to a fellow HR geek here as well. So we're in good
place.
Yeah, you talked about recruitment there. So thinking about recruitment, right? Talent attraction. I'm thinking about the IRFU as well. As a brand, as a well-known brand, well-known entity. Is there any challenges for the IRFU to attract talent? If so, what are those challenges? Is it easy to attract talent?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because I think people would assume the IRFU, the brand, we are going to attract lots and lots of interest, and we do. Just feedback I've had over the years, just chatting to different people within the network, they don't realise, I suppose, how big the IRFU is, that it has the normal departments that anyone else has. So it's been great working with the likes of yourself, and great place to work to get our name out there so people understand there is a kind of a business behind the team. A lot of people's only interaction with the IRFU, or what they would know, is to go to the Aviva Stadium or, the local province and attend a match or travel overseas, whatever they do. But I suppose they'd never think about it, and why would they? I always wonder if people realise, what goes on kind of behind it. So in terms of attraction, we often have a lot of interest, and definitely pre-COVID, there was never an issue. It's always kind of a little bit more difficult in maybe your analysis roles, in your medical roles, because you're probably looking for someone who has that sports slant or has that sports experience in there. But just for our general business roles, it was never an issue. There was always plenty of applications coming in, and really, a high caliber of candidates. So, but I think since COVID, we seem to have the same challenges as everybody else, all the other HR people I'm speaking to. And it is difficult. It's a competitive market out there. So we've had to stay, I suppose, up to date in terms of our offerings generally, just even in terms of, our well-being, diversity, just to keep up to speed with all of that. I think sometimes when you're going into interviews now, and it's definitely not a bad thing, I feel like I'm being interviewed myself. People are wondering, what can you do for me? And that's perfectly okay, because then if they do achieve and they are offered the job and they accept it, that they really are invested in the brand and they want to work there and they have their reasons for doing that. And it's great to be hiring people, like-minded people, and people are going to be ambassadors, for the brand and believe in what we're doing. And a massive part of our business is obviously rugby. That's what we do. But we also want to be known to have, a happy, engaged, healthy workforce sitting around all of that. So that's really, really important to us. So yeah, we definitely do have challenges. We definitely can't sit back on our laurels when it comes to recruitment. We're out there advertising. We're out there trying to get our brand out front and center in front of people. We have a new HR, or not a new HR person, no, we don't. We have a new director of communications starting, Aoife Clark, in July. And I'm really looking forward to her starting in. I've spoken to her, met her a few times, and we're looking forward to work with her as a HR team on the employer branding and seeing how she can kind of help, and together we can kind of push that forward. It is definitely something that it needs to be continually worked on, to make sure that we're out there as an employer of choice, hopefully.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And thinking about kind of, okay, sometimes you find yourself being interviewed, right, by the candidate, right? But the reality is we have to sell our culture and we have to sell our practices. And I'm interested in kind of, could you give people a sense as to some of those practices that you have in place in the IRFU for your existing people, or you might find yourself selling to new people? Like, what are those practices that you have, and what kind of forms the practice that you choose to introduce? Because I know you're refreshing all the time.
Yeah, we're definitely refreshing all the time. It's great to be part of the Great Place to Work network, because you're kind of hearing what's going on, and the different webinars that you guys put on are really, really helpful. So you hear kind of what's working for others and how you can maybe replicate that or adjust it for yourself. So yeah, we've been all quite active on LinkedIn as well, and watching what other companies are doing. Because I just feel like you just need to stay ahead of that. So some of the things I suppose over the last 12 months we would have introduced is that Show Us Your Leave kind of campaign kind of jumped onto that. So that would be, your first day of school, your half day self-care days, and just basically outlining all the different leaves that we give, just to showcase them for obviously externally and internally. And sometimes it's good even to take stock and realize all the things that you did introduce yourselves. We have a team huddle in place, or employee forum that's in place. We would work with them quite heavily, and we meet kind of every 6 to 8 weeks and see, I suppose, what's the temperature on the ground, what are people looking to see change and introduce. And we would definitely go to those meetings looking to see when we can put the different actions in place. Like, we would be quite an active group. And then obviously different surveys, like yourselves with the Great Place to Work, they're fantastic, and I'm sure that your colleagues go mad. I'm straight, as soon as we get the report, I'm flicking to the back to see, okay, what's been said, what do people want to see. And I just like to be on a journey and making progress all the time. You'll have seen obviously that we introduced the family friendly policies over the last 12 months, and they've gone down really, really well. Someone actually challenged me a couple of weeks ago and said, like, you have something there about, surrogacy that hasn't come up for us at all. And yeah, no, it hasn't come up for us as yet either, but it's about having those policies in place that when it does, or it might never, it doesn't matter, that it's there, and showing that we are open to this. And myself and Linda, my head of HR, would have talked about this a lot over the last few months. I have no idea what's around the corner, what's down the line. It's about staying agile and only increasing that, and fleshing it out further as we move along. I suppose the message we're trying to get across to our own staff and staff, our future staff, is that this company are open to hearing what I need and sit down and have a conversation with me about what's going on for me, for myself, for my family, or whatever that is, and putting that kind of arm around them and supporting them through that. So by no means do I think that we have a list of policies that are there and set in stone. We'll obviously need to adapt them as we go as well. So we would review our policies every year as well. But they've gone down really, really well. Even the maternity policy, we would obviously have had a maternity policy in place, since day one. But we have included a phased return to work there. So many of your listeners, I'm sure, have that in already, but that's something relatively new to us, probably 12 to 18 months ago. We put that back in, and it was through feedback from our colleagues coming back from maternity leave. And it is a juggle. I know myself. I have a 12 and a 9-year-old. And when I was coming back to work, like it's a lot of a change in routine for everybody in the house. And, they come back, a couple of days and kind of build it up over a series of weeks. And it just helps with that transition, and the feedback from the staff has been really, 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 really positive on it. I think it's just really helpful. But again, it's just a policy to show that we really do care and we're listening to our staff and their needs. So it's gone down very well.
Brilliant, Aileen. And the team huddle piece has interested me there, right? So who is part of that? How often do you meet? Give us a sense as to kind of what we talk about in the team huddle.
Yeah, Team Huddle, our employee forum. So they named it Team Huddle. And basically there are representatives from each area of the business. HR sit on it, but there's representatives from each area of the business and different levels within the business. So you don't have to be a director, a manager, or a staff. It's definitely a mix. And we would discuss different topics, maybe policies that we're looking to bring in, things that are happening. They feed in, give ideas. So after the meeting, they would go back and chat to their departments and update them and bring it back in. So we meet every 6 to 8 weeks. We do obviously interact in between times. We've had that employee forum in place for probably about 6 years now, or maybe a little bit more, maybe 6.5 years. But I was never so glad that we had it in place, that when it came to COVID, along with all the wellbeing initiatives that we had in place, when you come into COVID, then it wasn't brand new. People kind of understood what the remit was, although we weren't meeting in person, it was virtual. So we do now a combination of virtual and in-house meetings with that. But it's helpful to us anyway, because we would have we have offices from 10 to 12. We have staff out in Mace, which is our logistics centre. We have other staff in the high performance centre, and then others now obviously based remotely around the country. So the virtual comes into play very well there.
So it's a great way of creating connection as well with people in different parts of the business.
Oh, it really is. It really is. I worried when COVID hit for many reasons, obviously like everyone else, but I remember thinking, oh my goodness, like what are we going to do in terms of my role in HR? Like I really take huge value from what I refer to as the drive-by conversation. So people that just kind of land in to talk to you about something, but then it kind of evolves into something else. I was like, I'm going to miss that. But like, are we going to be missing a trick and not understands what's going on for people and for departments? So that really did concern me. I would spend a decent amount of time in the office. We have a policy in place that it's 2 days in the office, 3 at home. But I would spend more time than that in the office, and it's good just to get up out of your seat and wander around. We also have a company day, so it's kind of usually the last week of each month. It's the Wednesday, and we get everyone together that day. So there could be a town hall on. Training, different things, but it allows people to kind of get together in the canteen. We do payday pizza every month, and that goes down quite well. We are based over 3 floors. So when I would have started back 8.5 years ago, the feedback we would have gotten, there was a survey done before I came in, and the feedback in there was that there wasn't really relationships between each department. They just weren't working together, and not actively not trying to work together. They just weren't working together because it didn't naturally work together. So this introduction of payday pizza really helped. Like they're just such a great crew in the IRFU. Like there's a great energy from the staff, and they really enjoy any kind of staff gatherings or the payday pizza or whatever's going on. They really do kind of throw themselves into it. So it's good.
Pizza's good, isn't it? Pizza's
Yeah, pizza's good. Yeah, yeah. I don't know whether our nutritionists would agree, but it's no, it's great. It is good. I mean, everyone's allowed well-being. It's all about balance and all that. But I mean, I suppose we could have done any kind of food in the canteen, but I think a pizza, you're not necessarily going to get up and go back to the desk. The sandwich you might, and I mean, even people don't eat pizza, they come up anyway, have a cup of tea, and there's always a nice there's kind of a nice noise and hustle and bustle in the office on that day. I love company day.
And as we come out of COVID, it's interesting. We have to force these connections a little bit more almost. It's needed, isn't it, across all workplaces, just these connection moments.
Yeah, you really do. And I think it was like reminding managers just to kind of bring it as part of the day that they need to kind of reach out and, you know, not necessarily keep a log, but definitely make sure that they're interacting, because some managers have bigger teams than others, or wouldn't naturally be speaking to some of their team if they're not working on the same project. So it's just to make a conscious effort that you are picking up the phone. And during COVID, we certainly in the IRFU had a lot of staff that would have been, maybe living alone, or maybe had moved home out of Dublin, or, lots of different scenarios going on. So it was really important just to keep the connections up for lots of reasons, and try and get the team even together on a Teams call and that kind of thing. So definitely in work, we obviously have a company day, so everyone will get together. But then each week, departments have a core day that they would kind of make sure that they get into the office and get in together. Now that's not saying that would work for the company down the road. That's just what works for us. I'm not sure we'd ever go back to full time in the office. I think people are enjoying the sense of hybrid and work-life balance a bit too much. Obviously, we have a kind of two separate sides to our workforce. We have the high performance side, so the rugby side, and they would be in because they're working with the teams. So we have a high performance centre out in Abbottstown, and we have a full-time women's programme there and sevens programme, men and women's, out there also. So all the staff that would be work around those teams, would be in 5 days a week or travelling with the teams. So it's really only 10 to 12 Lansdowne Road that would do the hybrid, where the other set of staff they absolutely do. But usually they'd be in kind of Monday to Friday. They could be given physio appointments, it could be nutrition, it could be the admin or program manager that need to be kind of around the team. And obviously the teams that are attached to the high performance centre would be in on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Well, so it's, it's trying to find what works for each.
Of course, yeah. And it's great that there's that level of trust in place that you can allow for this conversation, allow for flexibility. People, as you said, have different things going on in their lives as well,
yeah.
And I think it's when people are forced to a certain rigid set way of working is where I think the challenges can kind of come in. So IRFU are a recent winner of a special award at the Great Place to Work Awards. Have to mention that because I know you won't mention it. So congratulations on that. All right. So, we saw a multitude of inclusive practices from the IRFU, and very much speaks to what you spoke about earlier on, Aileen, which is this kind of commitment to improvement. How can we improve things? There's lots of practices I could pick out. The carers support leave. How does that work, Aileen? What's available for people? That was one thing that interested me.
Yeah, we've lots of different supports there, and we were absolutely delighted and surprised in equal measures on the night when or the name was announced when you started, or Jim, I think it was, I can't even remember, it's all a blur, started reading out the policies. I was like, oh my God, that's us. So taking me a bit of a fright. And I was never so glad when your colleagues come over to say, this way you need to go up and collect the award. He quickly said to me, you don't have to say anything. I was like, thank God. But honestly, you're right. I probably wouldn't have brought it up, but it was amazing. I was absolutely delighted. I was very happy going home in the car that night. I really was, and the whole team was really, really proud of what's achieved. And then it's back to kind of reassessing. Okay, well, we are doing something right, and it's being recognised. So it was a happy HR day that day. We've always had kind of a carers leave in place. But we felt there was a couple of needs across the business at the time. So that's what kind of drove that policy. And then I suppose the whole suite of family friendly policies was born out of that. I'd heard definitely from one of the Great Place to Work family, I'll call it, about kind of it might have been on a webinar or in an in-person event about kind of family policies. So this was a good while ago, and I started kind of looking into it further, and I felt it was the natural next step for us. Whatever policy we look at, we always look to try and do the best we possibly can. We wouldn't just do the minimum for anything. We would always look to do that little bit more. And if we're unsure at all, like we chat to the likes of IBEC, we'd chat to yourselves, Fania, Jim, we'd reach out to our network to see, what was happening. If there isn't anything kind of there, we would always then go back and obviously sense check it in with the team huddle, and just to see that we're on the right track. We were really proud when the family friendly policies were being launched. I felt like we kind of really turned a corner with our whole offering for staff. And I mean, I'm sure there's be a lot of companies listening to today that have family friendly policies in there already, but this was definitely a big milestone for us on our journey to better. So yeah, no, it's I'm just delighted that they're in place. But again, a journey, and always looking to tweak and improve as much as we possibly can.
The more traditional view of families, right, and family friendly policies is we see families in a certain way, and of course families show up in different ways now, right? And
Absolutely.
That's why it's so important to have such a range, I would say, of inclusive practices, kind of where we're not leaving anyone behind.
But this is it, and that's exactly the message you're trying to get across. And as I said earlier, you mightn't cover every single angle because there's going to be more that will come down the road, and it's about, I suppose, kind of setting your stall out that the staff understand that you're prepared to listen and act on whatever their need might be. And let's chat about it and see, like we've had an EAP in place for since I started. We've had an EAP in place, and we switched providers a couple of years ago, and there's good kind of communication between the two. Obviously it's a confidential service, but you do get some feedback on different areas that need to be addressed. And obviously people come and chat to you about different things. Menopause, for example. So we've done a huge exercise there. There's a lot of education going on. There's obviously a policy in place. There's education for everybody. We're honing in and doing education for managers now as well. So just so, everybody's kind of equipped and kind of educated in terms of what to do. What else have we've worked with Women's Aid over the last 12 months as well, in terms of their training, and they've done some great training with us that's been kind of well received. You just never know who that's going to hit home with, either themselves or in their friend network or whatever it might be. But I think it's important I think there's an expectation anyway. You need to be looking after staff in kind of every aspect.
So it is so important that managers are understand and aware and are educated about what's their practices, how to speak to people. What sort of things are you thinking about for the education of managers piece? What specific things are you looking to do there?
So we have a people managers group. So we have 3 different groups actually set up within the IRFU. So we have our team huddle, as we discussed, the employee forum. We have mental health first aiders that are trained around the business, and they get together kind of every 6 to 8 weeks as well, and assist us. We kind of together we work on that offering and education and awareness around that. And then lastly, we have the people manager group. So they could we refer to people as people managers, that obviously that manage people, or they could be that kind of program manager level as well. So we would work with that group on the different feedback we would get from our Great Place to Work survey, for example, on areas that they might have honed in on that needs improvement or change, and we'd work with them a lot. So the education will be kind of focused at them and the senior leaders, just to get them on board so they understand and they're fully equipped because everyone's really, really busy, but no one wants to come into a conversation and not kind of know where to signpost somebody or, what to say. It could be some conversations that staff will come to, it can be uncomfortable for some people. So you want to make them as comfortable as they possibly can and they feel kind of ready for these. But I think education just in general with policies is just so important. There's no point in having a shiny policy and having it on the shelf. You need to get it out there and just kind of shout it from the rooftops, make sure whatever, if you have an intranet or whatever way you communicate your policies. I think there's no harm to come back and kind of revisit them. So we kind of launched our family friendly policies and that was great. And it was whatever, 16-page document and people read it or they didn't. And they certainly said they did. They did. They said they read them. But it's important to do the education. So it could be at a town hall that you do, look at all the policies in, detail. You put some education, maybe an online, some kind of online portal, put stuff up there. We would have linked in with our wellness provider. So we use Umbrella Wellness for our wellness portal. So we would talk to them regularly about, what's kind of gone on for us and different feedback we're getting, or if we're launching like those policies, and see how can they kind of complement them. So, can you get a speaker in to talk about X? Is there any support for Y? And that's how we do it. But I think there's no harm in doing refreshers every now and again, because sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming if someone gets a document in and there's kind of 4 or 5 areas in it and it's not the area that they're necessarily going to get excited about. I'm very excited, but they're not necessarily going to be excited and they have 900 other things to do. So we would have weekly director calls. So like if there's, anything like that launching or some education needed or a speaker coming in for whatever it is, I would make sure I let the director group know. So we would always let the director group know, okay, this is launching, this education's happening, this person's coming in, just so they're aware, so they can talk to their own staff in their own weekly meetings. So they're not caught off guard in any way. Just to make sure that we're kind of, circling back and making sure the management understand. But I think you do need to kind of continue to bring awareness to it and maybe reminders in your well-being weeks or, whatever's appropriate, but just they're not there to be left on a shelf and no one to know anything about. It's really important that you have your ambassadors or your employee forum reps, that they understand what's going on and what policies are available. Because the last thing you want is someone to come to go, I didn't realize he did that. I mean, that might happen anyway, but you just have to do your utmost to make sure that it's out there in whatever form that you can.
Yeah, and you don't want a manager to direct somebody to a HR handbook if they're asked a question. Of course, you want them to know the practices, be able to speak into them as well, I guess.
Yeah, as much as they possibly can. And I mean, you're going to have different levels of that, but at least if they have the high level, well, this is kind of what it's about and this is what we're trying to achieve by this. But, maybe do refer them to the policy, have a little look at it and we can sit down and chat. And if you do want to chat to HR, please do, or, whatever. And just to make sure that they're circling back with the employee to make sure that their query is sorted or they're content with the information that they got.
Absolutely. We know so a couple of important things been on the Great Place to Work program. It's it's about improvement, right? And that's come across really strongly, is that focus on improvement and how do we get better. And also it's about celebrating what we do well and showcasing what we do well and our successes. One of the things we've seen with some sporting organizations, right, not the IRFU, is that the improvement piece is absolutely there. How do we get better? How do we improve? What can we do next? That's absolutely there. And sometimes we see maybe, is it a fear or a worry about acknowledging success or what we do well or talking about strengths? Is that something you think about, Aileen, in terms of the balance in the IRFU?
Yeah. Like it's something we need to remind ourselves about, taking stock. And I think the framework and the whole process of the Great Place to Work is good for us because it kind of stops you in your tracks and has, you're able to look back and look forward. Okay, what have we achieved? What do we need to change to become better? Or else if you don't have that, I'd worry that, you just end up kind of meandering on and, maybe achieving in some aspects, but maybe not holistically. for me, it's definitely to get that kind of live information back out. How are people feeling? You hope that there won't be too many or any surprises in there, but if there are, there are. And just to have a look and see what action needs to be taken. You don't run at it either. You do definitely have to have plans. You need to like have a proper strategy and not trying to, run before you can walk. Definitely set out, start small, do, consistently be kind of plugging away at it, and just keep eyes forward and just keep going, because it can get disheartening at times. Like when we started at the beginning, some people were absolutely, yay, this is great, like I want to get involved in this, and others were kind of, what's going on? And same with anything, people stand back and think, what are they going to do here? And I'll just watch for a bit and see if this is for me. So we had a bit of that at the start, which is absolutely fine. But I've said this previously, there were different speakers I would have brought in, or different things I would have arranged, and numbers at the start would have been small coming, and I was thinking, what on earth is going on here? Why is everyone not as enthused as us, like as a HR team? Why are these people not coming? But I think you just have to be really, really patient with it, and you just cannot do any of this alone as a HR department. Like you definitely need your ambassadors around the business, whatever you call them in your particular business, and have them out, talking to people, listening and feeding back in. And it's seen as, a company-wide thing rather than something being kind of preached from HR. The senior management team are also really, really important. Having a CEO and director team that are open to all of this. And I know there'll be people listening here thinking, oh God, mine isn't, or I'm not sure how it would land with the leadership group. But I think if you just kind of sit back and think, what are the quick wins? If you do have any skeptics, what are the quick wins? What is going to be meaningful for them and their role? And start off that way, and then kind of build and just keep going. You'll have other people thinking, I don't have a budget for, for these kind of initiatives, maybe that the IRFU are doing. I'd imagine they have a massive budget, and we didn't have a budget, and now we do have one. And is it massive? No. Is it good? Yes, it absolutely is. But I've worked in places we've had no budget at all. And it's about looking at the resources that you do have and seeing what you can utilize. So you could have, people in your business. I didn't always work in sports businesses, but you have people in your business that have, are qualified yoga instructors or nutritionists or interested in knitting or have a language or whatever it is that can kind of add value, or people just generally who are interested in well-being and are looking to club together and put some ideas and help you with that strategy.
So how does the next, this is a big question, right? But how does the next 12 months look like for the IRFU in terms of focus, approach? Is it keep consistent, same as what you've always been doing, or any insights you can share around that, Aileen?
Yeah, I think it is about staying consistent. We've introduced an awful lot over the last 12 to 18 months. There's been lots of change with the shows to leave, the different policies, and I think we're just going to stay steady for the next year and just really kind of make sure that these policies are embedded. We'll still work with different organizations from time to time and bring them in, and I keep listening to our EAP, keep listening to our employee forum, and adjusting as needed. We would always do kind of wellness weeks across the year. So we do, 3 kind of wellness weeks across the year. So it's building on that too, and kind of making them letting them be a little bit bigger each year. So Elaine, my colleague in HR, she organizes and runs all of those. But I think in general in HR, we're really looking to just kind of keep the ship steady, make sure we're embedding what we do have in place, because I think we made a huge amount of road for us in kind of 12 to 18 months. So I just want to make sure that we're not just throwing more things, in kind of needlessly when we might need to. Now, having said that, we constantly are looking to see what is going on there. And if we need to add to anything, we 100% will. And I love hearing new things that are happening, because you're thinking, okay, well, this is the next challenge. Like I don't leave my house 5-6 days a week not to be challenged. And I think that's just the attitude I've had since I've started work. I want to be kind of making a difference and making things better as I go. I mean, with HR, you can sit back and just kind of do the transactional, the admin and all that side of things, and maybe ignore, the well-being side. I don't think it's really an option. Now I don't think it's something that ultimately you'd kind of get away with, and it's not something that I'd want to do. Like, I really enjoy it. So I think it's worth it. It's worth putting the effort in. Like, there's nothing better when people are happy and engaged in the workforce. You obviously get a huge amount out of them, and they get a huge amount out of it.
And I know that focus on whole self is important for the IRFU, right? So how do we encourage people to be themselves, think about people that work for us, their whole self, their personal, their professional life?
Yeah.
Any advice you would give to yourself starting off on your HR career?
I would have been a nervous Nelly coming out of school, or out of college probably, and probably worried. I put a lot of pressure on myself. I probably still do, to an extent, but not as much as I did back then. And it mattered so much that I went down that HR path. Like, I kind of achieved what I wanted to achieve. I did my Leaving Cert and repeated it to get into the course I got into in DCU. So it meant a lot. Like, I'd worked hard to get in and worked hard while I was there. So I'd probably just tell myself to relax a little bit and it will happen. But also, anyone kind of at the start of their journey, I think just make sure you soak up as much as you can from as many people as you possibly can. If you're in a kind of a HR department with a few people, just be listening to what's going on, be interested, and kind of attach yourself to those that really enjoy HR, and network on LinkedIn, go to different events like the Great Place to Work and various ones like that, because it's really good just to listen to what's going on. It just helps you learn and think. So I just think be really, really open. Don't be setting your ideas about anything, and just keep going, keep reading. And it's not probably all I read, actually, HR stuff, which is quite sad. But yeah, HR, different journals, and continue learning. So, like, over the years, I've done like lots of kind of different leadership courses, like the few days here and there. I've also done a couple of diplomas in coaching, one that would have focused kind of on corporate well-being, and I've done employment law. I'm hoping to go back and do my master's. We're wishing for more work, but I'm hoping to go back and do my master's in September, which will be in HR and leadership. So, and if you do want to stick to, like, I did the generalist route, obviously, but if there is a particular area that you're interested in, obviously try your best to get there. And I think be open in your performance reviews with your managers or with the company, whoever you're answering to, and just be honest and say, listen, loving what I'm doing, but I would love an opportunity if there was one to get in here. I'd really like to do that, and just put up your hand for things, just to gain other experience. Yeah, you mightn't love the experience at the top, like when you get into it, but at least and it's good, even when you're kind of looking back over the years, so maybe 20 years now in HR, and when you're looking back over different things that you've done, like what works, what hasn't. And every company and every job is an opportunity for more experience. And yeah.
Aileen, I think you've given us some great advice. I want to thank you for your partnership over the years, the IRFU, of course. The IRFU are lucky to have somebody like yourself that's committed to improvement, that's committed to the building a great culture for their people. So I want to thank you for the partnership over the years, Aileen. It's really appreciated. And thanks a lot for joining us today.
I really enjoyed it. Thanks a million. Thanks for everything, Cathal.
Red Cube listeners, thank you very much for joining us today. Please subscribe to our podcast if you haven't already done so, and of course leave us a review and tell us what topics would you like us to cover in the future.